Welcome back, guys, to a session of X-Plane. Here we are in the middle of Mexico, airport MMQT. I believe it's called Querétaro, and we're going to go off of runway 09er this time. I'm going to be using an Xbox remote. You don't really need much, like actual peripherals, but I'm sure they're useful. An actual student pilot, and all I ever really used was an Xbox remote. So we're going off of that, setting the triggers for the rudders. So let's go ahead and get started. Before engine startup, so that's going to be the walk around. Since there's no simulation for the walk around, we're just going to say it's complete. Pre-flight inspection completed. Seatbelts adjusted. Fuel selector bulb, it is on both. That is a check. Circuit breakers, nothing sticking out, nothing lighting up. Looks like circuit breakers are all in. This is a check. Avionics and radios, you want those off. That is off. That's a check. Brakes are set and locked in. That's a go. That's a check. Mixture. So this is going to be before starting the engine, the actual process. So we want mixture rich all the way in. That is mixture rich. That's a check. Primer. That's going to be for the gas. So we want 3 1/4 to prime the gasoline. And it stays open around 1/4, which should be right around there. Maybe a little less. Right around there. Open at 1/4, check. Now you want master on. That is master. Then we want beacon on. Beacon check. Propeller area, we want to yell clear. Kind of like using a defibrillator. You yell clear so people get away. In this case, you want people away from the propeller. So we yell clear, literally, on the hangar area. And that's when we engage. And let's see if we hit 1,000 RPM. Ooh, I think we got it. Exactly on 1,000. Nailed that 1/4 open. Alright, throttle or power at 1,000 RPM, that is a check. Oil pressure at this RPM, oil pressure is green, that's a check. Avionics and radios, now we set those on. And they should automatically set their frequency. In this case, it's going to be these. Let's see, if we want to run 09er, let's go ahead and adjust that beforehand. We are at 148 degrees. Let's just go ahead and adjust this right away. Usually you do it with the pre-flight inspection. Not the pre-flight inspection, the control surface check. Let's get this out of the way in case we forget. That's what I like to do, just in case. And then do it again anyway. So radios and avionics are on. We want this on standby, actually, not off. Radios and avionics are on and on frequency. That is a check. Now we go for lights. We want landing, taxi, and navigation right there. That says nav. It's kind of blurry right now. It might still be loading. So lights are check. Alright, before taxiing, we want doors and windows closed. Brakes set, mixture rich, and now we want 1,700 RPM. Going for 1,007. Right around there. And from this 1,007, we adjust the mixture, so we pull and pull until that RPM no longer rises. Right there. Yeah, close to 1,800. Looks like I can pull a little more. It's around there, and it no longer rises. So with this RPM, close to 1,800, we check the magnetos. Check for deviations for more than 100 RPM. So we check left magneto, deviation of more than 100. We return to both and let it recover. We were around 1,800, so that's the recovery right there. Let's check right magneto. Deviation is no more than 100 RPM. Looks like a healthy plane. Let's return to both. Let it recover. And with this RPM, we check the instruments. Amperometer, that's still charging. Vacuum between 4 and 6, or AKA suction. Oil pressure, oil temp, both in green arcs. So that's instruments green. Instruments are go. Now we reduce power to 1,000 RPM and ask for a taxi clearance to head over to the ramp. So that's the whole procedure for this thing. And if you're a student pilot as well, you're most likely going to learn with a Cessna 172, specifically these planes. Cessnas 172s are considered the easiest, some of the easiest, if not the easiest airplanes to learn to fly with. So you want to get used to these surfaces here and go by the book. So let's say traffic clearance would sound something like, in this case it's MMQT Querétaro International. We would say something like, Querétaro International, this is X-Ray Bravo Alpha Delta Hotel. We wait for a reply like Alpha Delta Hotel, go ahead. And from there we eliminate the X-Ray Bravo part, which just IDs that were student license plates. So we would reply with Alpha Delta Hotel, this is a Cessna 172 in hangars for local flight, returning today, request taxi VFR taxi to, and let's go 270. VFR taxi to 270, 7,500 miles, 20 miles out. Then they give us our taxi, and let's say we got XYZ information, and by XYZ I mean general information as an example. So let's say we got our instructions, and because of these predetermined lanes, numbered or lettered Golf, Alpha, and then a bunch of other stuff in alphabetical order, you might get certain instructions like runway 09er, taxi Golf, Alpha, maintain Alpha, should have runway 09er, Alpha Delta Hotel. And in this case, Alpha and Alpha would make sense, and I'll show you guys right now. So first it's y-axis, then an x-axis, and then a y-axis. Just thinking of it as a 2D grid. And on this 2D grid, we start with y, then x, and then y again to get to the ramp. Let's go ahead and show that now. And let's do our surface control check. Usually we would do it a little away from the hangars, but let's go ahead and do it right here. Surface controls would look something like this. That's 1, 2 for our pitch. That's 3 and 4 for our roll. We got 5 and 6 at the tail right there, if you can see that. 5 and 6. So we got the rudder movement, that's our yaw. And 7th is going to be our brake, so it looks like we're a go. Everything is working. No simulated failures going. Let's release the brakes, get going. And for taxi with a Cessna, with 172 at least, you want the maximum of 1300 RPM. But once you get moving, you can just go ahead and reduce it to 1000 to not brake so much. You're already rolling, you got the momentum. Airports are usually and should be flat, so you get some momentum, you're good to go. They should be flat because these things kind of just, they want to take off. So if there's a lot of wind, and if they go downhill a little bit, they'll kind of move on their own. Just quite the aerodynamic shape. So around this area, I assume we would do a flight surface control check. The 1 through 7. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's what we just did with the pitch control checks, the roll control, the yaw control, just to see if the flaps, the elevators, the tail rudder was moving. The 7th control being the brakes, which we release. This is a lot of activity, and I'm sure airports in the middle of a desert don't get this busy. We actually don't even have collisions if it's checked before. Put it to the test, so we could just fly through, but let's do it. Let's take it seriously. So after that truck, we got left clear. And looks like after that car, we got right clear. We're a go. So this is what I mean by the y-axis. We're going up, down, not left, right. And up, down is going to be Golf. It's marked alphabetically. This is G, Golf. On these numbers, we can see black and yellow. Black is where we are, yellow is where we're going. Something the simulation instructor never showed me. It had to be a CFI that actually told me how to navigate. Quite the angry flight sim guy I had. Irritable guy. Did not want to teach and is not a good teacher. But luckily all that mattered was my test results, and test results said this guy's ready to go. So now we're on that yellow section, and that yellow section was alpha, and now it's going to be on black. We're going to have alpha on black. And to follow our own instructions that we gave ourselves, we are on the x-axis, so that's alpha. And then y-axis is going to be alpha again. We should see it in yellow coming up. Black alpha, yellow alpha. Let's look for that sign right there, see if it's visible when we fly close to it. Yeah, there it is. Alpha, alpha. Where we are and where we're headed. Black is where you are, yellow is where you're heading. That's going to be the very edge of the taxiway. Probably slow down right here. We're getting to a sharp corner. Looks like a sharp corner. Start introducing brakes, not completely. And the brakes for this is, they're not so sensitive, it's just on or off. Only thing with much sensitivity is the rudders, since they're triggers. Alright, and these are the runways. We are on 09, we're going to take off to the east. So, opposite. This way would be 27. In this way we're heading 09. East and west. So we're going to head east, and this is where we would reply to the tower. This is Alpha Delta Hotel on Alpha, short of runway 09, ready for departure. And you do want to be a little bit quick. You want to get used to the terminology there, like that. An international tower, they're going to speak English, even if we're in the middle of Mexico. It might be a little broken, but a little bit of broken English, but you should be able to understand the terminology, which you're going to want to get used to, especially since the static on the radios can make it a little difficult to understand what people are saying. If you're used to the terminology, you can make sense of what's being said. So this is where we would wait for a reply. We get some instructions, and our instruction might sound something like, with us repeating them. Runway 09er, right, heading 100, reporting at 2.5 miles, clear for takeoff, Alpha Delta Hotel. So they would want us, you actually don't want full throttle yet. That was a maximum power takeoff. Let's do it standard here. So we get to the middle of the runway, and we have our instructions to report at 2.5 miles. We're going to head to the right, specifically heading 100, a little bit off to the east, to the right of east. We're at the center. Let's go full power. Let's get 1 point of flaps. Let's keep checking the instruments just in case. Most accidents would happen in these situations during takeoff. We got our airspeed live. We're close to that 65. Our trim is neutral, so we should be taking off right around here. Sometimes you need to give it a little help by pulling the rudder, pulling the yoke, I mean. And we want center of runway as we ascend for a positive ascension at 500 feet. Keep the nose down a little bit. You don't want to ascend too much. We get some speed as you ascend. And since our elevation here is 6,300-ish above sea level, we want 6,600 to put the flaps up, which is right around here. And our weather is going to be a little bit broken. It's going to be some lightning, some harsh winds. So flaps up, don't let it descend. In this case, you would pull the yoke a little bit. I'm going to reach the right rudder here to turn the yoke on to get those movements visible. But you would be pressing on the right rudder to maintain center of runway, to fly right above it. Let's see if we are on heading. There we are, a little to the right. Heading 100, and we report at 2.5 miles. And we were heading to 270, which we forgot to set here. So along with those flaps up, we're going to need a landing and navigation off. That's landing. That landing and taxi, not navigation. Correction right there. Keep that navigation on. Beacon stays on. Navigation stays on. You want landing and taxi off. And this is Alpha Delta Hotel, 7,300, heading 120, 2.5 miles out. And usually an airport wants you to say decimal, 2.5 miles out, Alpha Delta Hotel. So from here, let's resume our course. We wanted 7,500, which we're almost at, and we wanted a 270, so it's going to be the opposite direction, so let's head to the right. We're getting close to our destination altitude at 7,500, and the cruising speed is going to be 2,300 for a Cessna. So 2,300 RPM right here. Let's not let it descend. We want it here on neutral. In this case, to reach 7,500, we went a little bit above the zero to ascend, and now we try to go neutral. So flaps are up, lights are off. We want a cruising speed, but looks like we're going to get a lot of lift. We have headwind, it looks like. Let's try to combat that with some trim and just maintain right here. You trim the wheel up to keep the nose a little bit down. And we are at 270, but since the indicator here, the CDI, is marking to the right, let's fly to the right of the 270, to the right of west, to eventually intercept that radial. Let's not fly over the airport, so it's like a circuit, fly parallel to it. We're standing still a little too much. So we would push on the yoke for the nose down a little bit. Just a little bit of correction, but not too much, because pitch controls your speed. Looks like we're at a 500 deviation right here, or at 100 deviation. So let's just pull the throttle, since our power controls our altitude. Let's pull it down at 2,000 RPM. So we're good right there. We're going to start to descend soon, so let's get back to cruising speed at 2,300. Let's pull in the yoke to keep that nose pointing at the horizon right there. Once we cross the station, we're probably going to get a little bit of movement from the CDI. And that's where we would announce to our pilot or co-pilot, we got a CDI live. Start moving towards the radial. As a student pilot, you probably wouldn't be flying in these conditions. CFI would probably just make you land, get back to it another day. But I have had to fly like this, and once you know what you're doing, it's not difficult. Here we go. Crossing the station. We're going to take a glance at the CDI from time to time until it gets some movement, and then correct our course and not deviate. Hence the CDI, a course direction indicator. Course deviation indicator. There it is, CDI live. Let's jump over to 270. Let's make the left letter to make it quicker. Quick. And let's fly 275. Looks like we went too fast. 275, so we're a little to the right of this CDI. A little bit to the right of the radial, I mean. And eventually we will intercept it. This is where we would want to be flying, just a little to the left, once it's completely straight. Looks like we want to fly exactly 270 now, right around here, while maintaining your altitude at 7,500. Now that is important because even though we're in the air, people have crashed with other airplanes. It's nutty. So you want to keep your course, your imaginary road. You gotta be thinking in 3 dimensions here. Your height adds an extra axis. Your altitude adds an extra axis. So you got X, Y, Z axis. Up, down, left, right, forward, back. Rather than just forward, back, left, right like a car. You got an up, down. A little high, let's do some speed. Some throttle. Power down a little bit, trim up. Just making small adjustments like this and not combat the plane so much and sort of leave it in a mode that flies itself with minimal interaction. Great for the long flight so you don't get exhausted. I always thought it was weird with the car. Even though you're just sitting down the whole time, a road trip it's exhausting. Mentally exhausting. You don't have to be physically doing much. And here we are. 7,500, heading 270 and radial 270. Something might be confusing to new pilots is the radial not changing if you do a 180. You're still in the same imaginary road, you're just heading in the other direction on the same imaginary road. I'm going to ascend a little bit, so let's get some throttle in there. Let's trim down, closer to neutral. Very small adjustments right there. You can see some motion here. Sometimes you would have the control of the trim on your thumb right here, the yoke. So on our flight plan that we made for ourselves, we said 7,500, 270, 20 miles. So let's just keep flying this way. Let's try and avoid this. That'll probably put us into IFR mode. We can start a jazz band up here if we go through that. A lot of turbulence, a lot of heavy winds here. We'll be ready for that. A little high, let's reduce some throttle. Let's give ourselves a small margin of error, like 100 deviation here, 100 feet. So let's not let it reach that 6, so we're over it. We want 7,500. While maintaining 270, so let's lean to the right a little bit. Right around here. And this is where you would want to, the whole time you want a visual reference. In this case, we're using the horizon, pointing to the nose, maybe the top of this, close to the top of those mountains, top of this compass, close to the top of those mountains, kind of going off of that as a visual reference. 270, 7,005. Let's recover some speed to get this closer to neutral. So with these minor adjustments, this plane, you don't have to combat it much. You don't have to touch the yoke so much. Just keep making those adjustments. Keep using your visual reference. We're at 10 miles out. So if ATC calls us, tells us, dude, where are you? We would reply 7,500, radial 270, 10 miles outbound, Alpha Delta Hotel. In this case, we went left to right. If you're wondering why didn't we say west, it sounds way more professional to say 270. And you wouldn't say west either, you would say whiskey. There's predetermined terms for the alphabet, like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. The W being whiskey. I might put them in the comment section for the video description. I mean, the Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Something you do want memorized. It's essential. Like here, English would be essential. I'm sure in Germany, English would be essential for aviation. Maybe in Russia as well. You just have to learn certain things. Yeah, I'm sure basic English is enough. You should hear some of these radio communications with ATC from Air China. They're horrible. They only know the basic terms, and if you deviate from the terminology, it's kind of like not using the scientific language, something that's a little more universal, and they're not going to understand you. Just go with the terminology, and people will know what's up. Alright, 14 miles out. Let's do a 180 when we reach 20 miles. Something we always forget is landing and taxi before landing and taxiing. Get those lights on this time. So we're flying pretty steadily here. Might need a little bit of trim. The wind is getting heavy here. It's strong. Let's take some precautions and ask for any QNH deviations. So it's not an option. Can request QNH. Deviated a little to the right, made a little to the left. A little more. Doesn't take much of a tilt, doesn't take much of a roll. And there we are, 270. Oh, that wind is going to make it difficult. Considering how broken the weather is, that's pretty good flying right there. As long as nobody gets dizzy and pukes. I think that's why they have some height requirements. You can't be too tall, can't be short, not too short. It has certain effects with G's that you want to get used to. So if you're stalling, you're likely to pass out if you're too tall. Something hard to recover from if you're at certain dimensions. Let's reduce some speed. 17 miles outbound. So let's go ahead and practice. ATC calls us Alpha Delta Hotel position. We would reply 7,500 heading radial 270. 17 miles outbound, Alpha Delta Hotel. Or we could go right to left. In that case, we went altitude, radial, distance. Let's go distance, radial, altitude. So it's 18 miles outbound, radial 270, 7,500, Alpha Delta Hotel. So either left to right, right to left. Both work. And if you're at a certain decimal, let's say 18.7, and you're going pretty fast, just go ahead and say 19, round up. Like here, we would say 19 miles instead of 18.9. We're a little low. Get some power. We reached our 100 limit for deviation. Let's get some good speed. Let the nose go up. Let's ascend at 500-ish. And drop the power once we're close to that 7,005. It looks like we're at 20 miles. If we get called, we would say 7,500, radial 270, 20 miles outbound, Alpha Delta Hotel. And that's when ATC asks for position. So let's go ahead and do a controlled turn. Let's try to not ascend or descend. And let's do a 180 and go ahead and land on 09er. Request for that usually requires initial contact. So we would do a whole license plate again with X-ray Bravo. Looks like we need to descend a little bit. We got a little bit high. As we turn, we can correct that. Alright. Let's do it leveled, actually. We're not so centered. There we are, a little centered. Close to that 7,005. Looks like we're closer to 2,300 RPM. It's pretty controlled. Got the little black ball in the middle of the turn coordinator. And we're descending. Let's get that nose up and let's go throttle. Should be around there. Usually you want to not recover so dramatically. Passenger might get a little dizzy. Keep in mind the sensitivity of a passenger. They're not used to the movements, the butterflies in the stomach, the roller coaster type feeling. Obviously not so dramatic as a jet engine, but even with the dramatic shifts, even passengers at risk of getting dizzy, maybe puking. So if you want to head 09er, let's go 09er. A little more right now, which is where we are actually. That was a good 180. So we'd request, with initial contact, we'd request landing. So, Querétaro Tower, this is X-Ray Bravo Alpha Delta Hotel. Then we get a Alpha Delta Hotel, go ahead. Requesting right 09er, requesting approach Alpha Delta Hotel. And then we would get a cleared, a granted, go ahead, runway 09er right, report position, and we would reply exactly what we practiced here, left to right or right to left, and we would say 7,500, radial 270, 17 miles inbound. And that's an example of where some pilots would get confused, newbies. We are not on radial 09er, we're heading 09er, radial 270. We are still west, or let's say, we're still on this side of the station. Let's see where we are actually, getting confused here. We took off 09er, we went east, and we are currently west of the station. We are west of the station, so we're on the west radial. I confused myself right there. It's important to be able to correct yourself. Alright, let's drop down the throttle. We're getting a little high. Let's go to 2,000 RPM. 15 miles inbound, and usually ATC would ask us to report at a certain distance, maybe 10 miles. So ATC might say Alpha Delta Hotel, report 10 miles inbound. And we can just say Wilco, 10 miles, Alpha Delta Hotel. Wilco being will comply. So back to the radial thing. We are not on radial 09er. Our heading, where our nose is pointed to, is 09er. We're still in the same radial, still on the same imaginary road. Let's get a lot more throttle. We went way past our limit deviation. Let's go trim neutral. It's not close to 1,000 feet of ascension. That's where you start risking a stall, especially with this headwind. Okay, we're recovering. Close to 7,005, so let's start reducing an RPM to cruising speed, which is 2,300 RPM. We're getting close to where we need to report, which was 10 miles in. So that radial thing, important. We are west of the station. We are on radial 270. We just turned in the other direction of our imaginary road, our imaginary highway. We're still on the same highway, just the other direction. Let's build some speed. Let's go a little more neutral on the trim. Looks like this wind has a downdraft, which is something really good about the simulator. It gets the wind motions, captures odd wind. So once we're at 10 miles, we would reply just that in our position, just through distance. And if there's another plane coming, they would ask us to do something like a 360 for a bit, and then go ahead and land. In case we came in a little too slow. Another dude is coming in too fast to slow down. We'd be asked to do a 360 and then rejoin the radial. And that already happened to me once. Had too much headwind, and there was some other dude about to land, going too fast to slow down. Did a 360 for like 2 minutes, and dude had a little bit of a harsh landing. He had the tailwind, I had the headwind. Alright. Alpha Delta Hotel, 10 miles inbound. Should have pulled out just a little bit sooner. Something to note is you always want to be paying attention to what's, if anything is being said on the radio. Otherwise ATC can yell at you to not say anything while the radio is busy. Wouldn't really get a number for that, but if you do it often, you probably wouldn't. Don't transmit when the channel is busy. I'm sure the software here says a similar thing. In fact, I remember something like that. Your license, and then don't transmit when the channel is busy. Alright, runway in sight, we got it. Let's go a little to the left here. Start lighting up. Let's get that trim up to not descend anymore. Alright, one last time. ATC calls us Alpha Delta Hotel position, which they would do around these inbound scenarios. We would reply, let's go right to left. 7 miles inbound, radial 270, heading 09er, 7,500, Alpha Delta Hotel. The heading in that case was unnecessary because we have inbound mentioned. Inbound gives enough information as to your position. It's like we got red pappies, we're a little too low. So in this case, we keep flying straight until we get some white pappies, and then we go to the 2000 RPM, start descending, chase a white arc on the airspeed, and then 1 point to flaps. We're still getting red pappies, so keep flying straight. Looks like we're descending, actually. Let's go neutral right there. Lined up. So once you're lined up, we got some white pappies. Once you're lined up, you want to start using rudders and not roll so much. Okay, start trimming up to descent just a little bit so this plane doesn't go up anymore. We may have 2 and 2. Start descending slowly. We had to be a little bit slightly above 2,300 RPM to combat the headwind a little bit. Here's the tough part in aviation. We gotta land. Everything else was smooth sailing. Let's not descend too fast. We can still apply some throttle. Let's try to predict. Let's hit some left rudder. Keep it lined up. Let's predict that we're going to descend too fast if we let go too much throttle. There we got 2 and 2 pappies. Let's avoid a third one. Reduce the throttle. Let's get you at 2,000 RPM. Let's go for nose neutral now to hit that wide arc. Releasing a little bit of left pedal. We might be going in too high. Let's pull the throttle completely. Let's not do this without flaps. Let's get to that wide arc. Alright, 1 point to flaps. Throttle completely out. Hit some left pedal when we're a little more to the right here. Alright, left pedal. Let's introduce some throttle. Let's cross that umbral and then pull throttle. Alright, we're going to cross the umbral. Chase that center of runway, pull the throttle completely out and flare it just a little bit. There we are, butter landing, center of runway. Ooh, it's a lot of wind. Don't hit the brakes immediately. Let it roll, let it roll. Throttle completely out, let's get the flaps up. This thing might want to take off on its own if there's too much wind. Start introducing brakes. We're a little bit slow. Slow enough. Oh, that wind. Maybe not too fast. Introduce brakes a little too fast. Not with this weather. Alright. Should have let it roll a little further. Looks like we're at a decent speed. We can start getting to 1,000 RPM to get out of this runway and taxi. It's a good thing to practice with broken weather. I was not expecting the dramatic shifting and a need for correction with the rudders. We have all this runway. We can use all this runway. We paid to use this runway, we're going to use the entire runway. I needed to let it roll further before introducing brakes. Especially with this remote, you can't lightly tap the brakes. It is brakes on or brakes off. To roll or to taxi, we can do 1000 RPM. You know what we forgot? Landing and taxi again. Those lights. Those lights. Alright, let's taxi Alpha. We also wanted to communicate where we're going to taxi, so where we exited, I didn't capture it. It looks like it was not Golf, it was not Alpha. We missed our entry point into the taxi, our y-axis into Alpha, which we would want to communicate to ATC as our final report. So exiting via XYZ, then Alpha, then Golf to hangars, Alpha Delta Hotel, and that would have been our final communication right there. So let's say it's called Fox, which it might be actually. Getting a little familiar with this airport. We would say upon landing on 09er, taxiing Foxtrot Alpha Golf direction to hangars, Alpha Delta Hotel. Fox being y-axis, Alpha being x-axis, and Golf being y-axis again to hangars right here. We were able to pinpoint mistakes and get it a little closer to 100% accurate next time. And I really recommend getting a kick out of those Air China communications. And they're just trying to head to the ramp. ATC guy starts using different terms in English, just regular communication rather than just going off of the standard, more routine, robotic terminology. Looks like we got right clear after this truck. By the time we get there, yes, we're going to be right clear. And we might not be left clear. That damn truck. We were not left clear. But at this speed, we would have made it. Usually, airport is going to tell you there's going to be traffic crossing Gulf, hold short of Gulf before hangars, and we reply that holding short Gulf before entering hangars, Alpha Delta Hotel. Traffic in sight. So if we got runway right, right clear. Slow down a lot. Oh, we got tailwind here. We had left clear and right clear, so we were good to enter. And a tip here when you see other planes nearby, you want to avoid their wingspan. And if it's sunny out, so you can see the shadow of your wing. If the shadow touches, the wing touches. We're getting close to our original position. We got some momentum. We don't need to do more than 1000 RPM. Looks like a dude is in our spot. Or is it up ahead? A dude is in our spot. Let's just park up here then. What the hell, Jet? It's my spot. Here we are. Oh, I think it's a Lambo plane. Oh, it's Ferrari. Do Lambos make planes? And we're just smacking the left rudder completely to turn at low speed. There we are. We had to park in a different section since someone took our parking spot before we get out of here. Alright, and that is pretty much everything. Now let's do an after landing checklist here. Let's remove the yoke. Get the brakes set. Gotta do that manually since I'm using our remote. Alright, after landing, we want 1000 RPM, that is a check. We want flaps up, that is a check. We want lights off, which they should have been up, and we want these to turn down. Landing and taxi, so lights off, check. In this case, at the very end, navigation also comes off, so now lights are check. Radios and avionics, you don't switch this off immediately, you want to turn off displays one by one. In this case, if you hold off on the transponder here, eventually the numbers go down and the screen goes off. Here, one of the comms, you just go counterclockwise on this C, and eventually the display turns off. Here, same thing, counterclockwise on the C. On Charlie right there on the comms, and the display eventually goes off also, but it takes a little longer on this one for some reason. Then, with all displays off, then you can go avionics, radios off. So we got radios and avionics off, check. Now we want mixture off, and we wait for the propeller to stop spinning to get a check on that. Alright, mixture off, that is a check. Now we can do magnetos off. Oh, there it is, counterclockwise. Pull the key, maybe leave it dangling around here. Magnetos off, check. Now we want beacon off, check. Not part of the lights, important to remember. Beacon off, check. Master off, check. And field selector bulb we leave on both. There is no off, there's left, right, and both. And that is everything. To start an aircraft, fly with an airport, land on an airport, turn off an aircraft. All starting from hangars. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully learned something, and not repeat the same mistakes here. And I hope to see you guys in the next session.